Ciao everyone, my name is Arsen Khachaturyants and I'm founder of Arsenio SRL. It's a startup company in Tuscany, and to be more precise in Florence. And today we're going to talk about modulating health through extra virgin olive oil. Firstly, I want to say thank you to Brown University and ASM for inviting me to give a talk in Gut Health Summit. So today we're going to talk about extra virgin olive oil, and it's a big topic. We're going to discuss just the most important and interesting things which are now being discussed more and more. So firstly, I want to just mention a couple of things related to extra virgin olive oil. I'm sure most of you have tried extra virgin olive oil, or at least seen in the supermarkets or shops near your apartment or house. And the thing is, in the last couple of decades, the popularity of extra virgin olive oil is increasing, and not only in European countries, but everywhere around the world. And of course, we need to consider that there's different companies, different regulations. And the question is how to find the right extra virgin olive oil, how not to be caught by some forgery companies who create a fake olive oil or mixed with water and dilute it. So this is one of the things we're going to discuss in this lecture. Let's first go into our outline of this lecture. So we're going to discuss about the chemistry of olive oil, then how it modulates microbiome, then extra virgin olive oil and its standards, because in each country, and especially in Europe, is very harsh standards of extra virgin olive oil. And we're going to just discuss that, then packaging, and it's a very important topic. We're going to mention just a couple of important things to help you in the future if you're going to buy extra virgin olive oil, to buy the correct one, because really packaging does matter, and we're going to discuss this a bit later. Then we're going to discuss how should extra virgin olive oil taste, because again, since more and more producers start to sell their olive oils from different countries, starting from Italy, Greece, Cyprus, Spain, southern France, and California, you need to understand how it should taste, because the taste also shows you if it has all the nice chemicals which you're looking for. And then we're going to just quickly mention our Sober Lab research perspectives. It's a lab which we are creating this year, and hopefully next year we start some works, and we're just going to discuss our perspectives in our research fields. So let's move on. Olive oil chemistry. It's important to mention that olive oil has many compounds, many different interesting chemicals, but we're going to mention two which I think are the most important ones to just for introduction of olive oil, because they are most mentioned in scientific papers. They're discussed a lot. So firstly, it's a monosaturated fatty acids, and just to give you an idea of what is that, it's basically it prevents oxidation compared to refined oils with polyunsaturated fats. And it's preventing oxidation, which is an important role of extra virgin olive oil, which we will discuss a bit later. And polyphenols, of course, we have more than 30 compounds of polyphenols in extra virgin olive oil. And I decided to mention 3 of them because I think it's one of the most discussed ones, and they have also interesting factors of it in the taste of olive oil, which very nicely ties up with my idea, which I want to transfer to you about how to find a correct olive oil and how it tastes, how the real extra virgin olive oil tastes. So the 3 polyphenols which we are discussing today, it's oleuropein, oleocanthal, and also alpha tocopherol. And polyphenols have 3 main properties, which are antioxidant properties, anti-inflammatory properties, and also prebiotic effect, which they give to you. And the 3 polyphenols which I have already mentioned, oleocanthal, oleuropein, and alpha tocopherol, they have their own properties and all effects on the olive oil taste and also health perspectives. So oleocanthal, it's comparable to ibuprofen for its pain relieving effect, And also it has been shown in papers that it also can kill cancer cells. Oleuropein has a bitterness. It provides you a bitterness in the olive oil, which is also important. And we're going to discuss this a bit later because it's an important factor when you look at the olive oil from a taste perspective to understand if it's a good one or a bad one. And alpha tocopherol, it's basically providing vitamin E. Now moving again, we're still going to talk more about polyphenols since it's a very big topic in the olive oil world. And so let's go dig in more deeply into anti-inflammatory properties of extra virgin olive oil. So it promotes healthy aging. So when polyphenols are broken down by your gut microbes, anti-inflammatory molecules are produced, such as short-chain fatty acids. It also can prevent you from chronic diseases by inhibiting the induction of pro-inflammatory genes. And I will not be boring you with all the immune cytokines and biochemical cascades. But in short, it prevents the activation of pro-inflammatory molecules. Again, what's important to understand, again, with olive oil, if you like olive oil, and it's important to also keep in mind, you will see, I will discuss many good things about olive oil, but of course, it's not a medicine like which you buy, to get well. And I'm not telling you that you must use it as like instead of pills when if you're feeling bad or something. But it's a very nice idea to keep in mind if you like olive oil, you like its taste, you like the spiciness of olive oil, and you using it in your like meals. You can just understand that it has so many good effects on your health, and this is just few of them, and just keep in mind. So now we're moving to anti-inflammatory diagram on the right. So it's basically the middle of a slide. You can see that in this is an example how polyphenols downregulate the production of inflammatory cytokines, which can help your immune system from chronic inflammation. And now antioxidant properties. You can see this on the diagram below. So polyphenols promote the expression of antioxidant genes and enzymes, which in its turn reduce oxidation stress and in its turn reduce inflammation. Again, this is a very nice property of olive oil, and in Italy you use olive oil a lot. Like usually average person at least use a half a liter of olive oil, and maybe this is one of the reasons, for example, that some of Italians can live for long, but it's an important to keep this in mind. So now moving to the next slide, gut-brain axis modulation. Olive oil can modulate gut-brain axis. So effect on microbiome, if we look at this first point. Polyphenols act as a rocket fuel for your gut microbiome. And the question how they do that? Basically, what is the prebiotic effect which they have? So it means that these polyphenols serve as food for the commensal friendly microbes, thus promoting their growth. And this helps to prevent dysbiosis. So now looking at the effect on the brain, when these microbes eat polyphenols, they produce metabolites that travel to the brain through the vagus nerve and have anti-inflammatory effect. So we have already discussed how olive oil can reduce inflammation, can reduce oxidative stress, can increase cognitive health, and also can increase your gut microbiota diversity. And again, even with it's not all that it can do. At the same time, can reduce blood lipids and blood pressure, and also can reduce blood glucose and insulin resistance. And plunging it more. So because extra virgin olive oil reduces the oxidation of LDL and DNA, it lowers the risk of heart disease and prevents the initiation of cancers. Research also found that 2 to 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil a day can lower blood pressure. And The second thing, which I just mentioned, it can lower blood glucose and insulin resistance. Also, again, research has shown that 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil a day can decrease blood levels of glucose and insulin. Thus, extra virgin olive oil can help diabetics by improving blood glucose control. And this is just not plunging into details, is how olive oil can help you. And this is just like some people use it just for not drinking as in the tablespoons. They just use it in their daily life for cooking, for salads. And this is amazing how a product can be that beneficial for your health. So yeah, that's a good thing about it. Now, moving on. Standards, extra virgin olive oil standards. Again, just to mention that EVO is how we write it and we use it in olive oil world. So extra virgin olive oil, it's just easier to write and it's understandable, just to let you know, just in case. So standards. In general, the standards of extra virgin olive oil around the world should be the same, but of course there can be some deviations. But this is what we do in Europe, how they check it. So any producer of olive oil in Italy, they must yearly give their olive oil for check, for analysis, to be classified to extra virgin olive oil. And there are some numbers and some points we need to follow to get the correct numbers. So we're going to discuss 5 main points at which the chemical analysis is being checked for. It's free acidity, peroxide index, K232, K270, and delta K. I'll explain each of these factors, why they're important, why they're checking these factors, and why it's important to concentrate on these factors, because in general they provide you an idea how good is this olive oil. But of course, no one really shares these numbers. But anyway, let's start discussing that. So free acidity, it's basically when oil obtained from healthy fruit, regardless of a cultivar. Cultivar, basically, it's just giving you some terms which we use in olive oil production, but cultivar basically is variety, because not many really realize that there are more than hundreds of varieties of olives, and each have different amounts of polyphenols, different taste profiles. But anyway, so basically when you harvest the healthy fruit, and it doesn't matter which variety it is, and it's processed just after harvesting, it will have low values of free acidity, which is good. So basically the idea is to try to make your value of free acidity as low as possible, because the lower it is, it's better. It shows that the olive oil is much better. And one of the reasons why is free acidity rapidly increases in the presence of mold and microorganisms, which is not good. So if the values are high, that means the olives weren't that healthy. And it could be different reasons, starting with some bugs which can eat the olives or go into the olives, and depends on the treatments, what you do, and also weather conditions. And this produce large, basically when the olives are not healthy, it produces large quantities of very active lipases. Now, peroxide index. So peroxides are primary oxidation products, and they are used as indicators of oil quality and stability. And their value increases and reaches a maximum, and then decreasing because of their further degradation into secondary products of oxidation, such as aldehydes, ketones, and conjugated dienes. Consequently, the peroxide value is a measure of the degree of oxidation of the oil, and this is why it's important to measure it. And again, all these values, what any company needs to strive for is to reduce these values as low as possible. But now we're going to discuss K232 and K270. So what is that? It's spectrophotometric values. It is a spectrophotometric values in the UV at 232 and 270 nanometers. Depend on the conjugated double bonds derived from oxidation. They are basically the quality indicators of the olive oil. And just to give you a small note, you can see on your right, if you look at 3268, basically this is one of the values which you use instead of the K270, which is basically the same. And some companies which analyze olive oil sometimes use 268 instead of 270, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, and they basically are indicators for quality. They are quality indicators, the spectrophotometric values. So delta K, it's a creation of discrimination between bad quality olive oil and the virgin olive oil adulterated with refined olive oil. Yeah, so for delta K, you must strive for 0. And if you look at our values, which we yearly provide to everyone, so they can see, because we're very open with our values and our olive oil. You can see that all the values are much below than the extra virgin olive oil standards are asking for, which is of course good. And you can see there's a 6th factor which will also show, and it's polyphenols. And sadly, nearly no one shows their polyphenols value in their labels, and any olive oil you buy, you will very rarely see their polyphenols values written on the label, which is important because it's one of the quality factors of olive oil. It doesn't really provide you an idea that this olive oil will taste good and it doesn't have any faults, but it's also a good value to help you to orientate if this olive oil is good or bad, because usually olive oils of the quality below will have lower polyphenol values. But now our average is around 300 units, which is much above than any other olive oil producers. And for example, our maximum value is around 700. One of cultivars varieties which we have in Tuscany is Maraiolo, always very spicy and gives very good values of polyphenols. But for example, from next year of this harvest, we are starting to put values of polyphenols on our labels, because I believe it's important that you know what's happening with olive oil you buy and you use. Now, packaging. So one of the most important rules to remember: if you buy olive oil and you buy it in a bottle, it must be dark. If it's transparent, just don't buy it. And sadly, a lot of people are being caught by this marketing trick. For example, there's a lot of producers, especially you can see it more often in southern France, in Greece. You can see it in southern France, Greece, and some parts of Italy. They sell olive oil in transparent bottles, which are very bad, and it really reduces the quality of olive oil. It not only reduces all the healthy things which you have in olive oil, all your polyphenols, all the healthy stuff, but at the same time it deteriorates the color, which is not good. And usually UV light is not good for olive oils. That's why we keep it in dark places. And so this is rule number 1. You must buy olive oil in the dark bottles if you buy it in bottles. I would not suggest you to buy olive oil in plastic bottles, because again, in my experience, olive oil in plastic bottles usually will have some plastic aftertaste, which is not good. It means there is still interaction with olive oil and a plastic bottle. Another alternative which I think is pretty good, and for example, there are more research being done on their properties, is bag-in-box, which already been shown that it has nearly none of oxidation on olive oil due to its pressure. And it's very good alternative if you buy it like 5 liters of olive oil for your kitchen, or like 2 liters of something like that. And plated steel containers, so you can find especially I remember in America, I could find a lot of bottles of extra virgin olive oil in tinned bottles, which is also not bad. Again, most important, it covers from the light. And again, with packaging, it's important it's the color of the material, which prevents the interaction with light. And the second thing, of course, is oxidation. So, of course, bottles must be closed very well, because oxidation, again, deteriorates your olive oil quality. And this is one of the things which you need to keep in mind. And now we're going for taste. So how extra virgin olive oil should taste? I would say for sure, like burning sensation is the must. It's what you really need to look for. And burning sensation, not like chili, but it's more, I believe it's more pleasant than the chili burning sensation. And basically, again, as we discussed before, this burning sensation is caused by oleocanthal, one of these polyphenols. So if you feel burning sensation, that means there are polyphenols, and probably there's a lot of polyphenols if you can't feel a lot of burning sensation, which is good. That means the quality of olive oil. Bitterness is a more complicated term. It's a more complicated factor of olive oil because I would say if you choose between bitterness and spiciness, you need to look for more for spiciness. Of course, again, bitterness shows that there's polyeuropean present and its derivatives. But the problem is if you're using it for cooking, again, it's hard to pair anything with the bitter flavors. It's very hard. It's this kind of thing, and it might not taste that pleasant. But again, it doesn't mean it's better than the burning sensation. It's just one of the taste factors which you need to consider. But again, look mostly for burning sensation. Bitterness is also good. Depends of your taste buds. If you like bitterness, there are some varieties. For example, in Italy, in Puglia, which produce olive oil with this very bitter sensation. But for example, in Tuscany, there's the usual taste of the olive oil is burning. It's burning spicy sensation. And the third factor is even more complicated than the bitterness factor. It's basically fresh over fatty. So what does it mean? When you try olive oil and try go at home and try olive oil just to have this experiment. If you have and you put this olive oil in your mouth and you try to go around your mouth, so it's basically like tasting palm oil. When you taste the palm oil, you have a sensation that covers your taste buds, which is not good. It shows that, for example, in the extra virgin olive oil scenario, that shows that olive oil has some defect, and sometimes this defect appears during pressing. So if the olive oil wasn't tempered correctly, for example, when it's pressed, usually you use temperature control for extra virgin olive oils, especially for high quality extra virgin olive oils, to not overheat the olive oil during pressing. And if it's overheats, you will have this taste, this fatty, overfilling, blocking sensation, which is not good. You need to look for fresh sensation. I know it sounds counterintuitive because oil is like fatty in its definition, but actually there is difference between fresh and fatty sensation. So try to keep this in mind, and this one of three, I would say, most important factors of how to find a good extra virgin olive oil. And finally, some lab research, as I said at the beginning, this year we are hopefully opening our summer lab, and it will start its work next year. And we are going to have a couple of researches related to polyphenols, of course. And there are 3 different routes of our checking. We want to, of course, check how polyphenols decay during time, and there are different factors of which can be considered, like packaging, so oxidation, how it differs, and also depending on the pressing procedures, because of course you can harvest olives sometimes earlier when they're green, or when they're a bit late when they're greenish black, or when they're totally dark. Another research which we want to make, it's young olives against old olives. So in our property we have like thousands of olives, and some of them are around 100 years old and even more. And for example, last year we planted some young olives to promote more biodiversity. We planted some different varieties, and they are 5 years old. And we want to compare how the taste differs. And it's important to also keep in mind just the interesting fact that in the olive oil world, the taste of young and old is has a very different aspect comparing to grapes when you make wine, because in wine business usually the older the vine, the better is wine. The grapes are more concentrated, you will have more profound wine. In olive oil world it's a bit different, and it's also, people, producers are arguing if you should have younger olives or older olives, which are better, and that's why we want to compare in a scientific perspective. So we want to compare if same varieties, which are young and old, have the same amount of polyphenols and other molecules. Thank you for listening. I'm glad to share some of my experience and some knowledge about olive oil and olives. It's a really great product. And if you are interested to read more about it, here's our website where we're posting different scientific facts and updates related to the olive oil world. And also we post some recipes, how you can make your kitchen with olive oil more interesting from a perspective of some interesting dishes. So thank you.